I just got back from seeing Antman and the Wasp Quantumania, so let's talk about it. Before I begin, though, I just want to say that this will be a spoiler-free review. You're not going to have your experience at the theater ruined by watching this review. However, if you want to go in blind, feel free, click away. I don't blame you. But if you're sticking around, let's not waste any more time and get into it. I have mixed feelings coming out of the theater with this one. I really enjoyed it, which I know may seem like it goes against what I just said, but bear with me for a second. I really enjoyed it. I thought the action sequences were done pretty well. I thought visuals for the most part were pretty good. I thought characters for the most part were acted and written pretty well. I think it sets up a lot of things for the MCU that I'm both excited and nervous about. I've seen this film get bashed by critics on sites like Rotten Tomatoes, and I just want to say I think that's completely unwarranted here. But to say this movie is rotten or say it's bad, I think is overreacting. The Ant-Man films have never been these masterpieces, have never been these endgame level films. And adding Kang the Conqueror to a film is not going to make it that kind of level. And I think going into it, almost like Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, you get into this expectation that it's going to be this huge film. And then when it isn't, you leave disappointed. So I just want to say, if you're watching this before you see this movie, don't think it's this massive event. It's a fun time. It tells a good story. It does set up a lot of things. And I know Endgame was mentioned a lot in the promotion for this film, but don't think of it like that. Think of it as a starting point for Phase 5. However, I disagree with a lot of the choices made in this film. And I'm not going to get into those in this review because I don't want to spoil anything. Some with Kang, some with MODOK, some even with Ant-Man and Wasp. But overall, I think it was a really good movie. I think this is the first Marvel movie since Phase 3, maybe beginnings of Phase 4, where I was actually happy with the runtime. The little over the 2-hour mark was great. It did all it needed to do. It didn't feel like it dragged along ever. It didn't feel super fast-paced either. It tells you what it needs to tell you, and then it gets to the action. And then it tells you what it needs to tell you, and then it gets right back to the action. I don't know. I really appreciated that. I really liked that. The thing that makes this movie is the characters. I'm just going to start with Kang because that's what you all want to know about. Kang's great in this film. I mean, Jonathan Majors, I had doubts when I saw that he was going to be Kang, but I'm going to be honest, I don't know who I would have picked. After seeing him in both Loki and now this, I'm sold. Majors plays Kang to perfection. I loved his performance. The way he's able to portray Kang as this almost calm, cool, unfazed, arrogant, prideful villain. And yet, at the same time, even though he is calm, cool, collected, majority of the time, he also has moments of rage and of anger. And I think Majors portrays that very well as well. I also really enjoyed how they explained him in the quantum realm. I questioned going into this how they were going to handle it. I knew they had to be careful here explaining this, and after watching the film, I think they handled it in probably the most perfect way possible. Perfect's probably an exaggeration, but it was handled incredibly well. I was really pleased with that. Although a couple other decisions with Kang, I did not come to the same conclusion. I disagreed with a couple things they did with his character, but first impressions, Kang's great. Can't wait to see what they do with him. Paul Rudd does awesome as Scott Lang. I mean, do I even need to explain this? He's Paul Rudd. You know what you're getting here. Great as always. The rest of the cast does really well. They all have pretty good performances. I think their chemistry on screen is really good, and it really does feel like a family. The only critique I'll say with characters in this review is that it does feel like the film doesn't have enough for all of them to do. There are times where certain main characters are sidelined because the plot has nothing for them to do and then almost just suddenly reappear when the plot needs them to do something. And it's weird to see a main character or someone who's prominent in the series just all of a sudden show back up and you go, oh yeah, you're in this film. It's weird. I feel like maybe they could have subtracted 1 or 2 characters and the movie wouldn't have changed that much. But nevertheless, they did a good job with what they were given. Phase 4 has gotten a lot of comments on how bad the CGI has been. I didn't really notice anything in this film. I think it looked really good. There were a couple moments like when they were going into the quantum realm where I was like, that probably could have been done better, or ooh, I really noticed that was CGI right there. But it happens so fast and it's so minimal. It doesn't really affect your viewing experience. It's just a little bit of, oh, that probably could have been done better. And then that's it. The plot's not what I thought it was going to be. I feel like the trailer marketed something differently than what we were given. It's not bad in any way. It was just different. Certain motivations were advertised in the trailers that were not present in the film, which was weird, but it didn't lead to a bad product. Another thing that Phase 4 was often critiqued for, and a lot of people had a problem with, was the comedy in it, especially in Thor: Love and Thunder. Comedy is present throughout this whole film, but to be honest, I believe it was done very well. The tone of this film is a lot different from previous Ant-Man entries, but even though the tone's different, the comedy's consistent. And it never takes you out, and it never changes the tone of the film. There is one character in the film that you can tell is solely for comedic relief, but I think for the most part, comedy's done very well. There were a couple jokes where I was like, okay, that didn't land quite well, but there were a lot of scenes, a lot of one-liners, a lot of jokes that had the whole theater laughing, at least where I was at. So that's a good sign. That didn't really happen in Thor: Love and Thunder. Overall, again, I would say I'm conflicted on where I stand with how I feel about this film. On the one hand, it's a fun time, and I love just the Ant-Man series. I love Scott Lang as a character, and Kang the Conqueror is introduced, so how can I not like that? But at the same time, a couple story decisions and a couple universe decisions make me a little disappointed. Is it the starting point? Is it the launching point that I wish Phase 5 started out with? Probably not. I think it could have been a lot stronger. I think a lot of things could have been done better. But is it a bad start? Absolutely not. And it may just be because Phase 4 was so underwhelming or was so quote-unquote bad. But I think this is a promising look ahead. I think it still shows that Marvel can make good films and shows just a little glimpse at the potential that we can see down the road in Phase 5, Phase 6. As I believe I've said in previous videos, this is Marvel's phase to prove that they can still tell good stories, that they can still build out a universe that can build to events and stories like Infinity War, like Endgame. Not that they have to be to that scale. I mean, Secret Wars, from what I know in the comics, will be. This is Marvel's phase to prove themselves, and they can either redeem and say, hey, we've learned from our mistakes, we've learned what people have liked, and now we're going to move in this new direction. We experimented, some things succeeded, some things failed, and we learned from that. It's completely theirs to lose. If they mess this up, I mean, it's going to be hard to win a lot of people back. But I think that Ant-Man 3 is a good start to regaining some of that trust. But that's about it from me. Keeping it spoiler-free, let me know down in the comment section below what you thought about the film. And if you haven't seen it yet, when are you going to see it? I'm actually interested, so let me know. I love you guys so much. I hope you all have a fantastic day. Until the next time, peace out, bro skillets.